Hi, I'm Carys and Huda.
And I'm Gary Young. Each week, we concentrate on a couple of stories that we think the media have gone over the top on in some way, shape or form. And then we cover a couple of stories that we think have gone under the radar. This is Over the Top, Under the Radar.
And if you want to support the show, we now have a Patreon. So if you want to support us, search for Over the Top and Under the Radar on Patreon. And this week we have a very special guest joining us, Huda Jawad from the Three Hijabis. So let's get into this week's bonus episode. We hope you enjoy it.
Huda, welcome.
Hi,
welcome
Huda.
to
Hello,
us.
everybody.
In our fancy studio.
Very fancy.
Super fancy. And I just want to start by asking, you are one of the Three Hijabis.
Yes.
Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, how did it come about?
So the Three Hijabis were born in the summer of 2021 when the Euros was taking place a year later because of COVID. And we are three hijabi women who between us have, many years experience of fighting oppression and systemic discrimination, who went to watch a match first of all in a bar in London.
Bar?
Yes. So we are. That's myself, Huda, and Shaista Aziz, who's a journalist and used to work in the aid and development sector for many years, and then Amna Abdullatif, who used to and still does work around feminism, campaigning, working with young people, equalities and anti-racism work. We hadn't seen each other since COVID, and Amna was coming down to London along with her daughters for a weekend out. Happened to be the Euros happened. And Shaista and I said, well, why don't we all meet up? So Shaista is a very keen footballer and a football fan.
And
She plays football?
She does play football.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
And are you a keen football fan?
I do like spectating, yes.
Right.
I like
playing.
watching. No.
Fair enough.
And how long have you been into football?
I would say I've always loved watching it, but I've really not started kind of paying attention until probably about 5 years ago.
Right, so did you have a team?
No.
Okay.
No, I
So
don't
wait,
have a
so
team.
you were all in the bar. It's
Yeah.
So we all-
2021.
Three Hijabis going to
Three
a bar.
Hijabis
Three
going to a
Hijabis
bar.
Yeah.
Literally, that is what the tweet that Shaista put out that went viral.
Right.
And in it, she talks about why the Three Hijabis go into a bar and why we feel that the England team has, in its previous iterations, did not speak to us as women of colour, and why we feel so passionately about supporting the current squad and the management.
What is it about this particular England team? Do you still feel passionate about it? It's 3 years on. It's different, like Marxist Rashford is not in the team. There are others but you still feel passionate about the team? And why?
Absolutely. So we felt that players like Rashford and others, and Sterling and Saka, all of them have consistently shown a kind of a selflessness, a responsibility, a social responsibility that previous players, certainly when I was growing up in the 90s, that were completely different to what we had grown up with. So there wasn't this emphasis on fast cars, girls and money, and which I'm sure still exists, but there is a sense of kind of social responsibility and wanting to make the world a better place, which was enabled, we think, and kind of enriched by the leadership, by Gareth Southgate, who very clearly gave the boys the space to be who they are and express themselves, and even supported the anti-racist movement and taking the knee, did not tell the boys to not mention certain things or talk about certain things.
By certain things you mean racism?
Indeed,
Among
racism,
other things.
absolutely, and how they feel that in times of crisis they have a role to play in supporting the nation and leading the way in showing other people how to behave
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think it definitely articulates something that I've felt about this England team. In terms of the origin story of you guys in the bar, how were you received and how are you received as three women wearing hijab, like waving England flags? I don't know if you're waving the flag.
Yes. So I think one of the things that we certainly felt very differently is that we're proud to wave a flag. That is the England flag. And as you can see, we're very visible as Muslim women. You're not your average football fan or the stereotypical football fan. But we believe there are many like us who are invisibilized by the kind of stereotype of the racist lout or the kind of the sort of toxic masculine average football fan that is the stereotype.
Probably not the average, right? Just the stereotype. Maybe.
Absolutely. And what we had discovered since that kind of petition that we put together within 12 hours of the three players missing the penalty.
What was the petition about?
Well, the women came back after the match with Ukraine that we won, and we watched in a bar. We decided that we'd watch the final at my place in Wembley.
Right.
Nice.
And when we can see the arch from my if you strain your neck in the flat.
Lean out over the balcony.
And we thought, we can't be in the hallowed grounds. We can be kind of near it.
Yeah.
And we came to watch the match, and it was wonderful. My boys were the first time to see me with my friends going, run! We've got a feast. We've got all the takeaways. We've got all. It was
okay.
When you're watching the match, are you like effing and jeffing at the ref?
Yeah,
you talk us through
we
the sort of
were
moods.
really hyped up. We were like on a cellular level. We were there.
I mean, the atmosphere that day was insane. I remember just walking around London. Everyone was honking their horns. Like
it was brilliant.
It was
a real
there was so much
celebration.
excitement.
Yeah.
Considering the.
We're going to come back to that, actually.
Yeah.
Go on.
So we, considering the hideousness that was COVID and how, Wembley was impacted because we were right on the doorstep of Northwick Park Hospital where the London wave so-called started. And so it was a real time of kind of celebration and coming together of humanity, it felt like, certainly on the estate in Wembley. And so we were watching the match and it came up to penalties and we were on the edge of our seat and we were like, oh my God. And we were talking to each other and saying, what happens if they miss? Right? And so, of course, unfortunately, they missed. And within seconds of missing, Shaista got a message from her cousin to say, I just had to tell the neighbours to stop using the N-word because they started shouting because of they missed it and the penalty. And Shaista's cousin was watching the football with her boys in the garden and the girls. And so we were like this sense of dread and knowing, kind of like, we're like, oh, flip, this is not going to be good.
I think a lot of non-white people knew in like the pit of their stomach.
I mean, that's one of the interesting things, isn't it? Is that when... I'm going to speak for white people now for a moment.
Please do, Gary.
When they
need
are
a spokesperson. Finally, Gary is here.
Black-splaining. When white people are watching people take penalties, they're not thinking... that person's taking a penalty for all of us.
Yes.
If that person doesn't score, that's gonna we're in for it.
Yeah. The whites will suffer if you do not
they
hold
are
up our
watching
good
a game.
name.
They're watching a game, and because Carys was at my place, and we had a similar
party,
thing.
Yeah.
Bit more sweary, bit more alcohol than probably at yours, but still
Definitely more alcohol. We can't be sure about the
surprised,
swearing.
Gary.
You can't be sure about the swearing.
Yes.
I think the alcohol, we don't know how much this.
There's no alcohol, but there was a lot of swearing.
Yeah, well, my daughter was carrying around a swearing jar.
We didn't have that.
Yeah, well, she made a lot of money that day. Let's just say that. So, and when it got to the point, we were like, oh my God. And I remember when Saka stepped up, you said, he's a baby. No, so we kind of, it was almost like we were taking a penalty. Yes. And it was almost like we'd missed the penalty. And that kind of, but that I don't think and that goes for lots of things, right? Like crime, or you see a black person, you think, oh God.
You
or
hear
see,
some incident.
You see an incident, you're like, please don't be a Muslim,
Yeah.
or an asylum seeker or a refugee.
Yes, yeah.
And whereas when white people do stuff like that, it's about that individual.
Absolutely,
And
you don't have to account for it.
And the other thing I thought at the time, stuff was like, it really doesn't matter how high you rise. These are brilliant, on any level, these are brilliant people. You're not allowed to make a mistake.
Absolutely.
Black people aren't allowed to make a mistake.
Absolutely.
And that's as true for Diane Abbott as it is for Saka. But no, you don't get to do that.
No.
But so I cut you off.
No,
so
not
wait,
at all.
so that we've missed the penalties.
We've missed the penalties. We've already immediately heard of, the racist comeback. And we all went to bed deflated. I rolled out the mattresses. I said, girls, sorry. That's all you're getting. They're like,
Oh, wow, you took it out on the Two Hijabis.
yes.
Yeah.
And then, Amna had her own room because,
Okay.
she's...
Amna got lucky.
Well, she has a particular need to sleep on her own.
Okay.
Nothing to
I
do
have
with
that
snoring.
Yeah.
Amna.
I have that need. Although I do not snore. But I just don't want other people in my
I've got
space.
so many questions. And I'm not going to ask
Maybe
any.
for after.
I'm not going to ask
So
any.
the next day, me and Shaista are quite early risers. Amna is a beauty sleeper kind of woman.
I feel like
power to
Amna
her.
and I have a connection.
He's get on.
He's an early riser as well.
So me and Shaista walk, make a cup of tea at like 7 or 8 a.m. And Shaista's tapping away on her laptop. And then she's like, sis, come and read this. I was like, oh. And so we read. And we've put out this statement that says, actually, that's what happened yesterday is not okay. And these amazing young men are just stood up for us during COVID. It's time for us to stand up for them. And we're reclaiming the narrative back from the racists. Knocked on the door and Amna said, Amna, come and see this.
She's like, piss off.
She picks off the eye mask. She's like, guys, this is too early for me.
So we sit down and we agree that this is exactly what we need to do. It's the least we can do. We're like, you know what?
it.
If we get 5,000 people sign up, it's amazing. So we, Shaista hits the publish button and we go and have lunch. We go down to Wembley to have breakfast, rather, and then we walk and it was just a devastation, scene of complete devastation from last night, of like the rubbish everywhere. There was still like the scaffolding for the journalists and stuff. And it was like Armageddon had come to Wembley. And we speak to the waiters in the restaurant, in the cafe, and they're like, we had to call the police and shut the doors.
Oh, gosh.
Because it went mad. People were crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty bad afterwards.
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
and who was picking up the rubbish and the pieces? The people of colour were everywhere, cleaning up the mess. And it became symptomatic of what was really wrong in our society. And then about, 10:30, 11, we get a call from various BBC news outlets and radio producers saying, oh, do you want to, like, all right, yeah. How many have we got? We've got 10,000. We've got 20,000.
Wow.
We've got 40,000. We've got 50,000. And
Wow.
then, by the next day, it was 1.2 million.
Jesus.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, because I didn't support England, I used to actually, it's not just that I didn't support England, I used to support whoever was playing against England. Like when I was younger, yesterday, I would have been an honorary Serb or Dane.
I'm not sure
or
they would have liked
Slovene.
you, but never mind.
Yeah, well,
Interesting choice.
yeah, well, yeah, it's the kind of enemy of my enemy thing.
Yes.
I mean, anyway, I'm not,
But when did
I'm
that
not saying that
change?
would have worked for the Serbs.
But it worked for you.
It did work for me.
That's all that matters.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
and there came a time I wouldn't have been supporting until my 30s. And there was a kind of so I'm older than both of you. I'm 55. And just let it go. Just let it go, Huda, and walk away. And the racism in football was so intense when I was growing. It was where you found kind of organised racist groups recruiting. I got chased off a train in Stevenage by these kind of racist football supporters who I was like 16 and they would have been in their 30s. And if they'd caught me, they'd have done me some harm. And there was also just something. I remember in '96, I would have been 27. That was the Euros, when the Euros are here. Going to see England-Holland. England beat them 4-1. It was I think it was 4-1. Anyway, it was a big deal, and a friend had got a ticket. And coming out at Wembley, and it had gone from like, yeah, we won 2-4, we'd won 4-1, to like people were singing "No Surrender to the IRA," and I was like, they weren't playing. Do you know what I mean? What's that got to do with it? And so there was and I felt like I'd been cheated because I was being sucked in. I'm English, so I was being sucked into it in a way that made sense. Like, this is the England football team. I'm English. This is, you're like. And just thinking, oh, God, this is what you people do with victory. This is what you're like. It's never just about football. It's always about, like, I don't know, 1066 and bloody War of the Roses and all. Well,
2 World Wars and 1 World Cup.
Yeah, 1066 was the one they lost, actually. But kind of, and so there was something about, and I remember on the day of the finals, I was in Manchester and I came back because I was cooking a big old beef thing for Carys and some friends to come over. And on the train, on the overground in London.
The Euro final.
The Euro finals in
2021.
2021.
It was good beef.
But there were sort of leery, mostly white guys, taking up a lot of space, shouting, and kind of being just kind of quite threatened. I remember thinking, oh, maybe I got this wrong again. I've been really into this. And there is something about, first of all, feeling excluded from a version of Britishness or Englishness in the rest of your life. You know, where are you really from? All that stuff. And then the particular space that football occupies, that it took me quite a long time to find a way to do it, you know, and I remember buying football tops, England football tops, for my nieces and nephews, and thinking, well, this is interesting, because we would never have done that, but I still couldn't wave a flag. I couldn't. I'm not there. But I don't like flags. I can't think beyond a red flag. Do you know what I mean? I can't think. I think I've rocked a Palestinian flag a few times. That's the aspiration of a nation. I think once it actually became a country, I wouldn't want to do it anymore.
Ruined it.
So, so I guess I've just never been able to. I've never quite been able to get to that place. I wonder if there's anything about that journey that you recognise, and if say the day after, did you think, oh, or how did you feel about the previous 3 weeks in that moment?
Well, I think what you said completely resonates on every level. And I think what you said about the football fans talking about the IRA and really illustrates that football is never just football. Football is always political. And that's probably why I would never have supported or as in worn a English uniform, kit or flag or anything, because it represented something so hateful.
It's sort of hostile.
Yes, and something that just completely rejected who I am and did not recognise me, did not see me, just completely said, no, this is not where you come in. That's not your space. But I think what Gareth Southgate and Marcus Rashford and Sterling and all the amazing players, and it's not the first time you have black players in an England team, but what they did is they tackled that political exclusion head on and actually did not pretend that football can't be used as a tool of oppression and exclusion. They actually said no. football, our kind of team will speak up against things that are not okay. We won't stay in our lane and focus on the football and on the sport, essentially, because sport is transformative. It's the only space where you don't have to have a particular membership to enter.
Yeah.
There's a
And
gr- sorry.
I'd be interested, obviously you talked about the formation of the Three Hijabis, and one of the things that's come across is like the power of just the visibility of the three of you as fans. But do you have, in terms of your mission and what you're doing now, like what are you focused on?
We're completely about taking up space in the cultural space and sports in particular, because we feel sports is probably the most democratic place you can be, an inclusive space you can be as a citizen, as an ordinary person, without having to pass many, many hurdles and barriers. And we believe in the power of stories, in terms of our existence as human beings. And so our stories have to reflect us, and these spaces have to reflect who we are. And we need to make sure that these spaces, cultural spaces, sporting spaces, allow for people like me, you, all sorts of people to say, I belong here. And I can see people like me here. And we firmly believe in that it needs to be owned by the people, not the powerful companies that run and make money out of our commitment and love for sport and culture. And that's where we are.
How do you avoid becoming kind of national treasury? Do you know what I mean? Like, because there is an agenda that you set out there where you make football, and I'm thinking really of the national team, that you say, we're going to reclaim that. There's also the possibility that they claim you, right? So they say, see how wonderful Britain is, see how wonderful England is. Oh, we got the little hijabis have come. Isn't that nice?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And so how... And then you become like a national treasure.
Yes.
Like, see?
Yes.
See? They don't mind our racism.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering how you navigate that.
Well, it's really funny you should say that, because there have been ample opportunities when that risk was very possible. And all three of us were very, very clear from the outset. We're not interested in being famous. We're not interested in, the way in which we called on the FA to meet with us, to receive our petition, and to do something about banning racists from football for life. And there have been many opportunities where we could have been co-opted, and it would have been really easy. And, we were told, we have people in high places like yourself who have said, we were told, people who met with us from the FA were told to handle us. So,
Cheeky bastards.
yeah, well, that's a very nice way of putting it. That we are extremely clear about our values and what we want. We want a place for all peoples to be in football and sports. We're not interested in 5 minutes of fame. We don't care about endorsing anything. We're not, our commitment is to our values, our faith, and our belief in people having the right to enjoy life. And as Amna used to say, these people can go to work without having to be racially abused. The footballers have a right to go to work without being harassed and racially abused. Like, it's a right we all have. And that's ultimately what it is. So we are very discerning about what we do, but we're also very clear about not wanting to gloss over where things are wrong. And, an example of this is our engagement with the FA and various people in the Premier League and the footballing community who could very easily shut us out and have on many occasions kind of not invited us to things, not told us about things, but we were very clear about we're not going away.
Yeah.
We're going to keep knocking on that door until you open it and hear what we have to say. And to their credit, some people have and have made space and have made connections and links. But I think we always sit down together as a group of friends and women and say, how much have we given of ourselves to the goal that we are trying to achieve and to the power that be? Because we are not going to make it possible for the powers that be to co-opt us.
What would you say to people who still feel a bit uncomfortable about supporting England come Euros or World Cup time?
Absolutely. There is so much to do. I mean, look at the diversity of the women's football team.
There isn't any.
Exactly. And
It's a little bit.
well, we need more than one woman.
Yeah.
And that's not okay to put that all on her shoulders. And so I think the fight and the work is never done.
Yeah.
And we have when we have successes, it's so important and amazing to do. And we do it in coalition with other people. We work with Level Up, we work with Anti-Violence Against Women in the World Coalition, Girls Coalition. We work with all the people that have signed up to our petition. And it's about the we and not just the three and the one. And so, yes, there is a lot to do in football. But if you feel that you care about the players, if you feel you care about football being inclusive, if you want to enjoy football and not have to experience racism or harassment just for watching, just for supporting, then come join us and join our work. But otherwise, you have to be comfortable with where you are. And there is a lot to do.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting reflecting on your experience and yours, Gary, that for me, because I grew up a bit later than you, I really think that the impact of people like Kick It Out, who had put so much work into tackling racism in the stands, I think that did mean that for me, growing up in the 90s, I didn't feel the same. I mean, my mum is Welsh and my dad is Ghanaian, so neither of my parents support England come football time. But that sense of like, this isn't for you, I actually didn't experience the association until I had an encounter with the EDL, also at a train station. We were going to do some anti-racist campaigning with Hope Not Hate in Grays. And the EDL obviously found out we were going and met us at the train station.
That was nice of them.
It was absolutely charming. Yeah. It was you're not getting off at this station. And some of them had been on the train, and then suddenly, and a lot of them were waving the English flag, but a lot of them were wearing England shirts. And that was the first time I think I got a really personal experience of that. These two things kind of live together and are like part of a particular ideology. But yeah, I think that I agree with you around cultural spaces and how powerful they are. I think it's the kind of thing, if it's the sort of thing we can see a shift in our lifetime, that's almost quite inspiring to say we should be doing more. And I think one of the things I love about the Three Hijabis as well is that I think you can tell it was born out of friendship and like people who like a bit of fun, and sometimes activism can feel a bit joyless. Yes. But I mean, Huda and I have worked together before, and you're a very joyful human generally. But that sense of like we're three mates who wanted to watch the football, I think really comes through and makes what you do quite infectious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's something, I'm probably going to get this wrong in the saying of it, but there is something about the agency of like, I get so tired of seeing hijabis talked about. And so to see three women talking about football and talking about it in a kind of effortless, like, yeah, we like football. What do you like? What do you like? There is something kind of there is something deeply transgressive in its simplicity, in its kind of. I mean, obviously, you're doing what you want to do, but actually, doing what you want to do when you're a woman of color and wearing a hijab, as we know, is just not that straightforward. And so that assertion, yeah, we went into a bar and we watched the football. And it's like, you did what?
No alcohol was consumed.
No alcohol.
In case anyone was wondering,
in the construction of this,
you can be in a bar and not drink alcohol.
But funnily enough, we've had a lot of RE teachers contact us, and we are now in the RE curriculum apparently.
Oh,
yes, and one of the teachers said that they did a presentation or workshop with the kids about us and our story, and she said to them, emailing the Three Hijabis, what would you like to ask them? And the number one question is like, what were you doing in a bar? Did you drink?
Yeah.
How dare you?
How dare you? But it's absolutely true that, you know, for me as I was born in Baghdad. I came to this country as a child refugee. The English flag is deeply traumatic for me. Deeply traumatic. Living in Wembley for most of my life and having the stadium and, you know, getting on the Jubilee line when there was a match was just unsafe. We all go home and shut our doors. You know, Shaista tells you the same thing on his match day in Oxford. Yeah. Amna and her family worked in grassroots football for a long time, and she experienced racism because of her Muslimness, her femaleness. Our bodies are policed wherever we go as Muslim women and visible Muslim women. And so to be associated with the English team has been transformationally healing in many ways, because we've had to, what we're doing is to saying to these experiences, it didn't have to be this way and there is an alternative. And so I completely sympathise with not wanting to support England and having a problem with kind of being associated with a uniform, or with, again, I call it the uniform, with the kit, with the flag. But I think there is something about us saying we're going to rewrite our own association with these symbols.
It kind of reminds me of the Marcus Rashford mural that was defaced, that then people came and repainted. Yes. And it's like that is the answer, and the challenge for all of us is to have the energy and the belief to be like, they painted on it, but we have paint too. And I think that is the thing I love about what you guys do, and especially because you are so, because I mean, we're all visibly other in some ways, but that sense of wearing a hijab making you almost on the front lines of that visibility. So I love that rather than being like, I'm knackered, I want to hide and lock the doors, you were like, come at me, I support England.
The women's football team was interesting, though, because Iceland had a more racially diverse team than England playing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a real achievement.
And I was struck by what you said about I remember interviewing Jesse Jackson and him talking about, he said, you know why we do better at sport than we do elsewhere? Which, of course, I didn't know the answer because it was like a riddle. And he said, because the rules are known and the playing field's level, and then we can compete. But when they tilt the pitch up and they change the rules against us, and there is something about sport. Obviously, there are other things that we do. There are other things that we are good at. But there's something about sport that, not that there are no obstacles, and there's certain sports, you know, if you want to do lacrosse or Formula One racing, then but that, the playing field's level and the rules are known. I'm interested in terms of trying to buy you out, in terms of trying to co-opt you. What kind of thing? Like, did you? I'm imagining you might have got endorsement deals.
Yeah, Pepsi like.
Yeah,
we don't even get tickets for anything.
Oh, no. What? Get them tickets. If you're listening and you work in football, send them tickets.
Yeah, I mean,
free tickets.
Honestly,
a box.
I'm not suggesting you'll take it up, but Nike, Adidas, what are you bloody thinking, man?
On, I mean,
you're not doing your job, man.
Well,
it's our job to produce.
Us to like their hijab launch, which was nice.
Wait, Sweaty Betty. Okay, I actually.
Okay.
I mean, they do nice. Let's not promote them for free, but okay, that's right. That's a good start.
It's a good start. I think
we need more.
Just to pick up on what Jesse Jackson said. Even then, it's a level playing field for certain types of races and ethnicities. Because if you're an Asian footballer, you can forget it. The playing field is never level.
We were talking about that last night, wondering why.
And even then, it's because black people are racialized to be better at sport.
Yeah.
And so I think it just shows us that there is so much to do. But in terms of endorsement, nothing. I mean, we're quite happy to receive any.
I thought that was the deal. We produce resistance, then they co-opt it and buy it up. Handful of people get rich, and the whole thing kind of goes into sort of neoliberal hell. But like, you didn't even get offered a check.
No.
Well, I mean,
well, I don't think I'm not banking on it. But I think because these football, what we have come to understand is a complete universe and system. and the links between football and politics and capitalism is unreal. Like, it's a revolving door of civil servants, of investment bankers, of all sorts of things. And so these people obviously work together to make sure the system runs smoothly in a particular way. And we have consistently been quite unsmooth in our interactions. So I'm not surprised that we don't have endorsement deals, and maybe it's a good thing.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that you take them up. I like the idea of the resistance continuing and not being co-opted. I'm just kind of amazed that there isn't some git in the marketing
you're giving
department.
the Git the idea, Gary. You're like planting a seed in his mind.
I think
He's writing a TikTok ad as we speak.
I think in the words of somebody also in the footballing anti-racism world, we're too activisty.
Oh, yeah.
Too right on.
You're going to have to watch that.
Tone it down a bit.
Yeah. We don't like that here.
No.
We're notoriously centrist dads, so
Yeah.
Okay.
sand down the rough edges. Never talk about capitalism.
Yeah, we'll dial down the equalities work.
Yeah. Just like maybe talk about diversity.
Yeah. Inclusion.
And representation and vibes. Okay, but so I like that, and I like the point you made about football as a bigger system, and you mentioned Level Up, who had done some campaigning around rape in football.
Yes.
Like, how do you think football is savable, given it is so much of it is about profit and big business? And I mean, we see that when we find out where FIFA has chosen to host a World Cup, it often feels like money has changed hands. Like, how do you stay optimistic?
Well, I think football ultimately is for the people, by the people. I think there will always be powers that be. I mean, because football and sports is so transformative and political, you can see the scramble of Saudi and others to like hoover up any kind of credibility that they can pay for the power of sport. I think what we have done as a Three Hijabis and as a petition is to create a space for people who really are not very kind of who are not interested in a football that is meaningless and is slick. We've said, it's not okay to be horrible and racist and abusive to a particular type of football player. And if you agree, join us. And I think so long as we create more spaces where people can say that they disagree with something, then we have constituency to fight on and do more. So that's my hope, is that people continue to support the basic view that you just don't have to be, can I say asshole?
Yeah.
Yes.
Please do.
Yes.
To enjoy football.
What do you think it is about Gareth Southgate, apart from
The waistcoat.
apart from the waistcoat thing?
No, he
which
wasn't
apparently
Not yesterday,
was-
though.
Oh, I
Wasn't
know.
Dropped his
wearing
game.
it,
Maybe he was
yeah.
going cash for the first
I'm
opening.
concerned. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the difference we need, but I feel like the waistcoat was a pretty key part of the strategy.
I think he was off-brand last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Well,
But apart from the waistcoat, which was reassuring, what do you think it was about him that facilitated this being possible?
I think Gareth, I mean, I don't know his life story, but what I do see is that he is a thoughtful man and he's a player's sort of manager. He understands what it's like to be in their shoes, particularly once the three amazing players missed the penalty, and the way he completely enveloped them with this kind of fatherly support. I think he's also a man of his time. I think there is something about understand, and a lot of people talk about football intelligence or basketball intelligence or whatever. I think he is really intelligent about the possibilities of sport, and he lives in a universe that is connected to his values and his view of the world. And increasingly, footballers who are not divorced from the reality of the life they live in can see. I mean, you don't have to be extremely clever to understand that, you know, when people are going through hard times, it would be great if one could say something about that and support them in some way. So I think his leadership and his quiet confidence is that I don't have to follow a model. I don't have to emulate a person. I could just be me. And his vulnerability to be different, I think, is quite powerful.
So where the waistcoat comes in.
So, yeah, I think he kind of thinks, you know, the waistcoat is a way of saying, I have certain standards, you know, and I expect that of my players. But my standards are not just about the superficial.
Yeah, it was interesting you said that because we've talked a lot about race and football, but I think there's also an intersection around that. Yeah, dialing down the laddiness of football. Like I remember when Robbie Savage and Graham Lasso were playing and had this sort of rivalry, and it was basically Robbie Savage bullying Graham Lasso because he read The Guardian and like wasn't laddie. And that sense of like, there's a certain way you've got to be if you're a footballer or if you like football, and it's
Absolutely.
like mega blokey and like laddie and you drink loads. And yeah, I think that Gareth Southgate, you're right, sort of also represents like a slightly different way to be a man. Although I am not a man. I don't know, Gary, if that...
No, that's
speak
true.
for all men, please.
Yes.
You've spoken for the white people. Now, please speak for the men.
Was that you, womansplaining?
Yes, it was.
No,
she's allowed.
There's an emotional intelligence about him, and a confidence that you mentioned that means that you don't. My sense of football managers in the past was of a kind of like, get up, shut up, do this, do that. This kind of like manly men. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that kind of. I remember commentators would talk about, well, that was handbags at 4 paces, or whatever. Like, and this kind of pansification of anybody who kind of, took a dive or wasn't hard enough. There was something about being hard, and that you don't get that from him, and some of that is a kind of almost a managerial kind of quality that you kind of slightly could imagine him running a kind of building society or something in your local area. Do you know what I mean?
Gareth, when you're done with football,
there's a place for you at Bradford and Bingley.
If you set up a building society, we'll support you, Gareth. Whatever you want to do.
If you ran a building society, you think,
trust this guy.
Yeah, I'll put 100 quid in there.
There's a sense of professionalism, I think, about his style, but also I think he just gives himself permission to just be himself. Whereas I think previous kind of iterations of management had to be this kind of, you have to be laddish, you have to be loud, you have to be brazen, and football is about a spectator sport. It's like gladiators. Whereas he doesn't believe that. I don't think he believes football is gladiators.
Which, without getting too Freudian about it, there is a sort of...
Oh, go on, get a bit Freudian.
Well, there's a version of fatherhood, isn't there? That's like, shut up, there's nothing wrong with you. I'll give you something to cry for. Get out, get a job. And then there is a more modern version of fatherhood that would be like, well, what's the matter? Well, maybe you could do it like this, or maybe you could do it like that, or, this would be fun, which suggests some kind of connection. And I know that the players aren't his kids, but he is a generation older than them, and he has that experience. And I find that there is something calming. I find with him that on the one hand, I think it's just a game. And on the other hand, I'm like, come on! That each game's kind of, matters. And he doesn't lose his shit every time something goes wrong.
Yeah, he's very
They lose to Iceland, and he's not like, oh my God. So he's proved a very, very inadequate target for the tabloids. Like, particularly with the taking a knee, they really hate it. And I've seen tabloids really go for England managers in the past. And some of that is performance related, right? The team is doing well, which has got a lot to do with him and a lot to do with the team. They can't be kind of divorced. But it's not all to do with that. It's also a kind of sort of moral panic that the country's had. Like, they won the cup in 1966 and God, they kind of can't get over it. They still can't get over it.
Yeah, but it's to your point about sport isn't ever just sport, right? The One World Cup, 1966, that we all sort of grow up. It's like this weird thing that we can't wrestle with our history and be honest about it. And the winning One World Cup, what is it now, 50, 60 years ago?
Nearly 60 years ago.
Yeah, it's like, it's almost also then a bit symbolic of like empire and this greatness. And like, it just, like you say, it's never just football. And for me, during the pandemic, there was a great tweet that went viral that was like, what part of 2 world wars and 1 World Cup does this virus not understand? And that sense of like, well, we're this great nation and we have all these former glories that were actually quite a long time ago now, but we're still amazed that, there's there's some national psychodrama that really plays out with the football. And you're right, Gareth Southgate is like this sort of calm vessel who's like, it's great that he's successful. Want people like him to be successful.
Yeah, what England manager writes a letter to the nation?
Yeah.
And that just speaks to the way that, things are very different on his watch.
Yeah. C.L.R. James, what do they know of cricket? Who only cricket know? That was his point about cricket. But it works for all sports, doesn't it? It's like, look, of course, yes, it's a game, but particularly on a certain level, it is a game with meaning, and that meaning is not independent of the world in which we live in. We imbue it with meaning, and that means that the meaning can change.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm very. I've been inspired by you guys. Actually,
Thank you.
I really
Very
have.
inspiring.
It's kind of
Thank you.
because it's the elbows, man. It's like, get the fuck out of my way. This is my country, and this is the way that I want to do it.
Elbows.
And, elbows. Everybody should have
Take
them.
up space.
You got elbows, babe.
Yeah,
Love
we've been trained in the way of making space for ourselves, and it's just like, if not now, when? I'm getting old.
You look incredibly young.
Yeah.
We've talked about that.
Korean skincare.
Yes. What is your
Another thing.
regime?
Yeah, what's the
Tell us your
regime? Tell us.
regime.
Like I said, white supremacy in the morning,
Yeah.
patriarchy just before bed,
Really?
and then Korean in the middle.
Right. There you go.
The triple threat.
Yes.
Okay, wait. So we've got a summer of sport. What have the Three Hijabis got planned? What are you up to?
Yes, so we've been tweeting, and we are hopefully going to Paris at the end of June.
The Olympics.
For the Olympics, but also to participate in a feminist festival to
Nice.
help to do a workshop and deliver training around what would the Olympics look like if we didn't have gendered Islamophobia and if we didn't have racism. And if competition was explained differently or understood to be different. And then we're doing some work with grassroots women's organisations that work on football and sports. So we've done a lot of kind of talking to students and visiting schools to support girls and explain about how the options for their career path. We've worked really well with Manchester City's communities team, who have helped us take a group of about 200 young Muslim women to the stadium to watch the women's derby, and a much more kind of events around that work and that sport.
So if people are listening and they want to support you, should they follow you on social media, like sign
Yes,
a petition? Or
How
should
do
they
we
do?
support you?
Yeah, how do we support
people
you?
support you?
Right. Well, we have a website just relaunching. So it's threehijabis.com. We are on Twitter.
How does that? The
number 3.
Right.
Yes.
Hijabis.com.
And
And what's your handle on Twitter?
T3 Hijabis.
Important question. What snacks are you serving if we turned up to yours in Wembley to watch the sport?
Well, Wembley is the epicenter of the globe. So we have all sorts. If you
what am I
fancy
gonna eat?
Somali, Indian.
Okay. So if I come round to yours
Arab.
instead of Gary's, what am I going to get better food?
Oh, no. You don't get better food without Gary.
Okay.
You have to bring Gaz
just checking
around.
my options.
What question is that?
I'm just
Gaza,
seeing what
you're
my
welcome
options
anytime.
are. There's a lot of big
Wembley.
matches coming up, you know?
Oh, man.
Just
I
want to
don't
know
if
what's
that's the
on
Welsh
being
or the Ghanaian
served.
in you
It's
that's
just a
doing
bit of
it.
both.
Yeah.
Or it's just my greediness.
where-
Oh, you're welcome. Like,
Yeah.
Gilda, we
But I mean,
like
we
to
have
eat.
to watch. I feel like we have to watch a match together because we need to know who swears the most.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe bring
Yeah.
the swear jar.
Bring the swear
Yeah.
jar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
all bring snacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, leave the snacks to me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
I'm
my
up for
job.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
You bring the commentary.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
bring the commentary, the vibes, and we'll have a swear count going.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks,
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this week's Over the Top and Under the Radar bonus episode.